Good morning. In today's lesson, lesson 1.7, the title of our lesson is Use Place Value to Add. And our essential question is, how can you use place value to add three-digit numbers? So our Unlock the Problem today is Dante is planning a trip to Illinois. His airplane leaves from Dallas, Texas, and stops in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Then it flies from Tulsa to Chicago, Illinois. How many miles does Dante fly? And in our map, we see that Dallas was his starting point. He flew to Tulsa, and it's telling us that that distance is 236 miles. He then went from Tulsa to Chicago, and that took 585 miles. So they want to know how many miles Dante flew. And so we're going to add using place value. And so if you remember from our last lesson, we started by estimating, because that gave us an idea if our sum was in the right neighborhood, so to speak. So 236, if we're going to round to the hundreds, we're going to underline the 2. We'll circle digit to the right, and that tells us whether we're going to round up to increase the hundreds place by 1 or keep it the same. And in this case, the digit to the right is 3, which is less than 5. So we'll keep the 200s. In 585, again, we're going to underline the 5 because we want to round to the hundreds. We're going to circle the 8, the digit immediately to the right. In this case, it's greater than 5. So we're going to increase the 500s by 1 to get us 600. So our estimate is 800. So we know that when we're finished adding these two add-ins, that we should have an answer that's close to 800. So step 1, let's stack the add-ins by place value. So we have the 1s lined up together, we have the 10s lined up, and we have the hundreds lined up. It's very important to line up the place value. All right, so add the 1s and regroup the 1s as 10s and 1s. What that means is that if you have a sum of 1s that is greater than 9, we're going to have to trade or regroup at least 10 of those 1s as a 10. So here, let's add this up and we'll see. 6 plus 5 gives me 11. Right, so 11 1s. Well, we don't put 11 1s in the 1s place. The greatest digit we can put in the 1s place is 9. So we're going to regroup that in 11 1s. That means we have one 10 and an extra 1. So we're going to put the regroup 10 above the 10s, and we're going to leave the 1 1 in the 1s column. Now we're going to go to the 10s and see how many 10s we have. Well, 8 and 1 is 9, and 3 more is 12. And again, the greatest number we can put in the 10th place is 9. So we're going to regroup the 12 10s as 100 and 2 1s. 10 10s is 100. So we see how we had, in a sense, 12 10s, right? 12. Now we're going to add up the hundreds. We have 5, 6, 7, 8. 821. And so that's what these steps over here. So in the first one, we step 1, add the 1s. Step 2, regroup the 10s as hundreds and 10s. So we regrouped, in our first step, we regrouped 110 with 1 1. We now added those 10s, which gave us 12 10s. So we regrouped 10 of the 10s as 100. And in the final step, we added the hundreds, which gave us 8. So 821. Is 821 close to our estimate? Yes, so our answer is reasonable. So he flew 821 miles, and since 821 is close to the estimate of 800, the answer is reasonable. Okay, and it says we can also use the commutative property rather than just the estimate, and okay, that's reasonable. to check our work. And basically remember that cumulative property means the same numbers, different order. Here we have 236 and we're going to add 585 to it. Here we're going to start with the larger add-in, 585, and add 236 to it. So again, add the ones, we get 11. Regroup 110 and the 1. Now we have 9, 12 tens, so we're going to regroup the tens and hundreds. 5 and 2 is 7, plus an extra 1 is 8. So our answers match. So let's go to page 200 and, page 30. And find 563 plus 48 in 2 ways. Okay, first we're going to round or use compatible numbers in this case to get an estimate. 48 is close to 50 as one of the quarters, correct? And 563 is close to 550. So 550 and 50 is 600. So in our 2 ways, we're going to use the break apart strategy, which we learned yesterday, and we're going to use place value, which we're learning today. So 563 is 500 plus 60 plus 3, and 40 is broken up as 40 plus 8. Okay, so now we're going to add each of the columns. 6 tens and 4 tens is 10 tens, and we have 500 here. Now put this all together, we get 500 plus 100 is 600. 600 plus 11 is 611. 611 is close to 600, so our answer is reasonable. Now we'll add by place value. 8 and 3 is 11, so we're going to have to regroup as 110 and 1. Add the tens, we get 10 and 1 more is 11. So 11 tens, we're going to have to regroup one of the tens as 100 and leaving us 110. 5 and 1 is 6, so 611. And so those are 2 different ways we can add 2-digit numbers. Okay, let's move on. Use place value to add 3 add-ins. So in this case, we have 140 plus 457 plus 301. Okay, and as we look at an estimate here, they're using compatible numbers, and they're rounding or choosing numbers that are close to 25, 50, 75, or 100 in the tens place. So 140, the close quarter to that is 150. 457, the close quarter would be 450, and 301 would be 300. So we add those together, we get 450 plus 150, that's 600, because 50 and 50 is 100, plus 100 is 200, plus 400 is 600. 600 plus 300, 900. Okay, so now let's use place value to add these. So we're going to stack our numbers based on the order in which they gave us. 140 plus 457 plus 301. Add the ones, 8. I do not need to regroup the tens and ones in this case. That's tens and ones. Add the tens. In this case, we get 5 and 4 is 9. 9 tens. Again, I do not need to regroup. So now we go to the hundreds place. 5 and 4 is 4, and 3 is 7, and 1 more is 8. So 898. And 898 is definitely close to 900. So our sum is 898. Let's move on to B. This time we have 173 plus 102 plus 328. So if we round to the nearest hundreds, 173 would get rounded to 200. 102 would get rounded to 100. 328 would get rounded to 300. So 200 and 100 is 300. 100, add an extra 300, we would get 600. All right, so we know that we need to stack our values by place value. We're going to add the ones first. 8 plus 2 is 10. 10 plus 3 is 13. So that means I'm going to have to regroup the ones as a 10 and ones. Okay, then we go to step 2. Add the 10. This time we get 10 tens, which means we're going to have to regroup the tens as hundreds and tens. 10 tens is 100, leaving me with no tens. Step 3, add the hundreds. 3, 4, 5, 603. 603 is close to our estimate, so our answer is reasonable. Right, so share and show are the practice problems on page 31. Circle the problem in which you need to regroup. Use the strategy that is easier to find the sum. Okay, so looking at these, just start with the ones place in each of the problems. Okay, 2 and 6 is 8. Right? There's no need to regroup. 6 and 4, that's 10 ones. Okay, so clearly I'm going to have to regroup those 10 ones as a 10 and ones. So we're going to have to regroup that. Now choose any method. You can use place value, or you can use the break apart strategy. You can even use friendly numbers, where we could add 4 to 496 and subtract 4 from 284. Any strategy that you find to be the easiest to find the sum. I'm going to go ahead and stick with the break apart strategy. 6 and 4, I get 10 ones. 90 and 80, I'd get 170. And 400 and 200, I get 600. And now we're just going to put that back together as a sum. 600 and 170 is 770 plus 10, 780. Okay, number 2. Estimate. I'm going to use quarters. Compatible numbers, 250 and 345 is close to 350. So my estimate is 600. My answer should be close to 600. Okay, so let's add the ones. 6 ones. No need to regroup. Move to the tens. Step 2. 5 and 4 is 9. No need to regroup. Step 3. Add the hundreds. 300, 200, 500. 596 is close to 600, so my answer is reasonable. Okay, next example. I'm going to use quarters again. So I get 475. 395, I would use 400. So my estimate is 875. Okay, now step 1, add the ones place. We get 14 ones, which means we're going to have to regroup the 14 ones as tens and ones. 14 ones would mean I have one extra 10. Step 2, go to the tens and add them together. 9 and 1 is 10, and 7 more is 17, which means we're going to have to regroup the tens as 100 and tens. 17 tens gives me 107 tens left over. Now add the hundreds. 4 plus 1 is 500, plus 3 more, 800. 874 compared to my estimate of 875, very close, so my answer is reasonable. Okay, in number 4, I'm going to round to the nearest hundred. So 686, I look to the digits to the right, it's 5 or greater, so make that 7. Increase it by 1, make it 7, 700. And 314, look to the digit to the right of the hundreds place, it's less than 5, so keep the 3, which is in the hundreds place, the same. If I add those together, I would get an estimate of 1,000. Okay, now let's add our two add-ins. 6 and 4 is 10. I'm going to have to regroup the 10 ones as a 10 and no ones. Now step 2, add the 10s. I get 8, 9, 10, 10 10s. So I'm going to have to regroup the 10 10s as 100 and no 10s. And now add the 100, 6, 7, 1,000. Clearly, those are close. We got the exact same answer as our estimate. All right, number 5. We're going to be adding three add-ins. So I'm going to round these all to the nearest 100. 231 would become 200. 410 would be 400. And 158 would become 200. So if we add that together, we have 200 plus 200 is 400. 400 plus 400 is 800. All right, so step 1, we're adding the 3-digit numbers. 8 and 1 is 9. No need to regroup. 5 and 1 is 6. Plus 3 more is 9. No need to regroup. 4 and 2 is 6. Plus 1 more is 7. 799 is close to our estimate of 800. All right, let's continue. Estimate, then solve. So copy and solve. So what they mean by copy and solve is rewrite it. So we're lined up by place value. Okay, 253, I'm going to use 250 as my estimate, like a compatible number, and 376 is going to be 375. Okay, so 3/4 and 2/4 more is 125, plus the 500, so 625. Step 1, add the ones, 9. No need to regroup. 7 and 5 is 12. I do have to regroup the 10s as 100 and 2 10s. 3 and 2 is 5, and 1 more is 6. 629 is close to 625. Number 7. I'm going to go ahead and use 650 and 250, which gives me an estimate of 900. Because 50 and 50 is 100. 200 more would be 300. And 600 would be 900. So then stack the numbers so that they're lined up place value. Step 1, add the ones. 4 and 3 is 7. So you do not need to regroup. 6 and 5 is 11. We will have to regroup the 11 10s as 100 and 110. Now add the 100, step 3. 6 and 2 is 8, plus 1 more is 9. 917, that's in the neighborhood of 900. So 917 is reasonable. Number 8, we have 3 digits. So let's estimate. Let's see. I'm going to round to the nearest hundreds on all of those. 321 is closer to 300. 439 is closer to 400. 112 is closer to 100. And if we add those all together, we get an estimate of 800. Okay, so now let's stack our 3 add-ins by place value. And we would get 9 and 1 is 10, and 10 and 2 is 12. 12 ones. 12 ones, we do have to regroup. So we'd have 1 10 and 2 ones. Now add step 2, the 10s. I have 1 and 2 is 3. 3 more is 6. 1 more is 7. 7, there's no need to regroup. And now finish it with step 3, add the hundreds. 4 and 1 is 5, and 3 more is 8. 872. 872 is in the neighborhood of 800. Okay, and partly the reason that we're further off on these is when we rounded, we, in a sense, took away 21 from this one, we took away 39 from this one, we took 12 away from this one. So when we rounded, we made each of these numbers smaller. If we had maybe changed these to like 325, 450, 125, or 100, we would have been a little closer to 872. All right, number 9. Okay, I'm going to use hundreds. I'm going to round to hundreds. 182 is close to 200. 321 is close to 300. So I'm expecting an answer somewhere about 500. Okay, so stack your numbers by place value. 2 and 1 is 3. No need to regroup. 8 and 2 is 10. So we do have to regroup our 10 tens as 100 and no tens. 300, 100, 100 is 503. So 503 is close to our estimate of 500. Okay, number 10, 701. It makes sense to use 700. And 108, I'm going to make that 100. So I should expect an answer close to 800 as my estimate. That's my estimate. Stack the numbers, 701 plus 108. Step 1, we know, is to add the ones. 8 and 1 is 9. No tens, we don't have to regroup. 9 or less, we don't need to regroup. 0 tens, 0 tens, 0. No need to regroup. 700 plus 100, 800. 809 is in the neighborhood of 800. Okay, now this number 11, I'm going to go ahead and use hundreds again. 543 would be close to 500. 372 would be close to 400. And 280 rounds to 300. So 400 and 500 is 900. And 300 more is 900, 1,000, 1,100, 1,200. So I'm expecting an answer somewhere about 1,200. Stack our numbers by place value. And step 1, add the ones. 3 and 2 is 5. No need to regroup. The tens, step 2. 11 and 4. 7 and 4 is 11. Add 8 more, we get 19. We do have to regroup here. So 19, we're going to regroup as 100 and 9 tens. 19. We had 19 tens. Now, step 3, add the hundreds. 5 and 3 is 8, plus 2 more is 1,000, plus another 100, 1,195, and we are close to 1,200. So that is a reasonable answer. Okay, now number 12. Find the unknown digits. So remember, step 1 was you have to add the 1. So 4 plus what gives you 7? But that's the same thing as saying 7 take away 4. So that's going to be 3, because 4 and 3 is 7. Now, 3 plus something gave me 5. Well, that's 2. 3 and 2 is 5. So what goes here? I didn't have to regroup any of these, so this must be 100. 4 and 3 is 7. 2 and 3 is 5. 100 plus 100 is 200. So those are reasonable. In this one, we have 6. So let's try 2. Could be that, or could be 16, 2. But let's try 2. 4 and 2 is 6. 7 plus what is 8? Should say 1, right? 7 plus 1 is 8. 6 plus what gives me 9? Well, that's 3, right? Okay, now let's double check. Let's see if we got the right digits. 4 ones, 2 ones is 6 ones. Great. 7 tens and 1 10, 8 tens. 600s and 300s, 900. Awesome. Those are the right numbers. Next one. 9 plus what would end in a 2? Well, 9 is bigger than 2, so this must be a situation where we have to regroup the ones as tens and ones. So it might be 3, because that would be 12. And if that's the case, remember we have to regroup 1 10 and the 2 extra ones. 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 plus what is 8? 5. So if I have 5 there, that would give me 8 because I had to regroup that. I don't have to regroup the tens as hundreds. So 2 plus what is 600? 400. 9 and 3 is 12. Regroup as 1 10 and 2 ones. Add up the tens, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then move to the hundreds. 400 plus 200 is 600. So that is the correct answer. Number 15. 7 plus what is 3? Well, you can't add, at our level in third grade, we can't add anything to 7 and get 3. So we know that this has to be a situation where we regrouped. So let's assume it was 13. Okay, so 7 plus what is 13? 6. 6 and 7 is 13. So we have to regroup 1. 1 10 plus some number of 10 plus the extra 10, or the regroup 10, gives me 2 tens. 2 plus what would end in a 0? Well, I have to make it 10 tens, right? 8, 9, 10. So that means regroup the 10 tens is 100. I'm at 300, 400. 400 plus what is 900? And we should come up with 500. So now let's go back and just double check these digits. 7 and 6 is 13. So again, we would have regrouped the 13 ones as 1 10 and 3 ones. We added the tens, 8, 9, 10, which means we would have regrouped the 10 tens as 100 and no 10. 500, 300, 100 does have a sum of 9. So those are all correct. All right, 16. There are 431 crayons in a box and 204 crayons on the floor. About how many fewer than 1,000 crayons are there? Estimate, then solve. So 431 and 204. I need both of those numbers. All right, so estimate. Well, we might go, since 204 is close to 200, let's go ahead and use that. 431. Well, I think that's close to 425 if I use quarters. So that's about 625. So about how many fewer than 100 is that? We can even make this even a little easier to do. Let's change both of these to hundreds. Instead of quarters, let's use hundreds. So 431, that actually would be rounded to 400. And 204 would get rounded to 200. So our sum would be 600. Now, how many fewer is 600 than 1,000? Well, 600 plus what is 1,000? So in your head, imagine counting on from 600 by hundreds. 600, 700, 800, 900, 1,000. So 400. Okay, so it's about 400 fewer than 1,000. Right, let's go on to our last page for today, page 32. Number 17. A plane flew 187 miles from New York City, New York, to Boston, Massachusetts. It then flew 273 miles from Boston to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The plane flew the same distance on the return trip. How many miles did the plane fly? So what do we need to find? Well, the question is what we need to find. So how many miles did the plane fly? What is an estimate of the total distance? So we have 187 plus 273 plus 187 plus 273, because you fly the distance one way, but then you also flew the distance coming back. So if we round these to the nearest 100, we get an estimate of 200 plus 300 plus 200 plus 300. 300 and 200 is 500, plus the same 500 coming back. He flew about 1,000 miles. Show the steps you used to solve the problem. Okay, so in this case, step 1, we're going to add the ones, which gives us 10 ones. Regroup the 10 ones as a 10 and no 1. Add the 10s for step 2, 9, 16. You could also go 7 plus 1 is 8, and 8 and 8 is 16. Regroup the 16 10s as 1 10 and 6 1s. And finally finish up by adding the hundreds. So we get 460. That's the distance going there. Now they have to come back the same 460 miles. So again, let's add the ones, no ones. 6 and 6 is 12 10s. Regroup the 12 10s as 100 and 2 10s and add the hundreds. 4 and 4 is 8, 8 and 1 is 9. So 920 miles. 920 is close to the estimate of 1,000. So it's 920 miles round trip. All right, number 18. For numbers 18a through 18d, choose yes or no to tell if Max should regroup. Does he need to regroup the 1? 6 and 2 is 8, plus 1 more is 9. So no, he didn't have to regroup the 1s. Did he have to add the regrouped 10? Well, there was no regrouped 10. We didn't have to regroup the 1s. So that would be no. 5, 9, 11. We will have to regroup the 11 10s as 100 and 110. So does he have to regroup the 10s? Yes. And does he have to add the regrouped 100? If he wants the right answer, he does. 400 plus 200 plus 200 plus the regrouped 100. 800, 900. So yes. All right. So now you will take, you'll move on to your independent practice on Go Math online. If you have any questions, stop and ask me. Tomorrow we'll be doing a mid-chapter checkpoint to kind of review what we've learned so far. So until then, good luck on tonight's work. I'll see you in the morning.